Welcome to Commander Central episode 131, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Commander 2019 decks. I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
Gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah.
Indeed.
This is going to air on Monday, and Max and I will be in Vegas at that point in time.
I believe I'm at the pool right now, if I'm thinking ahead of time.
If this is airing Monday morning, that's entirely possible. We will
Yep.
be in the pool.
You guys won't be up yet by the time it airs.
6:30 Central, yeah, we'll still be sleeping.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, that's where we'll be. We will have 4 shows after this airing this week, so that's kind of crazy.
Hashtag Vegas week.
Yeah, we're gonna be busy, and hopefully we'll see how many games. How many games do you think you're gonna play this week?
Last year, I believe, I played like 52 games in the week we were there. This year, we're staying an extra day.
Yep.
And showing up an extra day earlier.
And the Commander tournament isn't
a thing,
and that sucked up an entire day for 4 games or so,
Yep.
5 games last year. And we've got people that are doing stuff after hours during the week as well.
Yes.
So I think we'll pretty easily be getting in 60-ish games, if not maybe more this week.
Yeah, I bet I hit 60 this year.
That's insane.
I know last year we shot for 100. You almost hit it.
Yep.
I got stuck in the 50s because I wanted to go to bed and sleep. This year, no, I'm just throwing it all out the window.
And we've got a couple other things we'll be doing this week, too. I think we're going to try to do some streaming with MTG Lexicon. We're going to record, I think, something with CCO or Ken Ed Pop. We haven't figured out the timing and all that stuff yet.
Yep. What else? We will do a little recording.
Yeah. Who knows? I don't even know. There's just so much going on. It's tough to exactly say what exactly is going on when. So
right.
It'll be a good time.
But we're not at work.
We're not at work.
Our real work.
Yes, exactly.
We're at fun work.
Chris is back here keeping an eye on everything for us. Is that your plan, Chris?
Sure.
He's getting ready for Indy.
Chris, this is Chris's vacation from us, right?
Sure.
No, it's also one day. I mean,
so how about what's your plans post Hogak? Quick, I'll ask you when that eventually gets banned. Like it's definitely 100% absolutely going to.
you know, I could see Wizards just trolling everybody and
Be
not
like, nope,
doing it.
Nope, it's
Figure it
dead.
out.
So if they don't ban it, I will be playing Hogak.
Yeah, I mean, why would you not?
Yep. If they do ban it, I'm probably going back to Humans because Humans is going to just uptick hard because they had a good battle against all the other decks in the format. So
Chris's playtesting buddy Nathan Wells finished 17th at GP Minneapolis.
out of 980 people on Twiddlestorm,
Won 12 games in a row with it.
he went 0-2, then proceeded to win all his games up through and ended up 12-3.
And he said every person he beat, particularly on the Hogak deck, was like, "That's fantastic. Good luck, man. I hope you roll."
That's great.
It was awesome. He had, if you want to check it out, I know Channel Fireball did like a
Yep.
1-minute clip of like a deck tech type of thing.
Of him talking about the deck. I think we retweeted it when it came out last
Yeah.
week. So congratulations to Nate. That was very cool.
That was awesome.
And congratulations to the other team members of Team D20 that made day 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
Robert Bolig and Mike Miller.
Yep. And then local Minneapolis player Ryan Overturf, who's one of the owners of Lodestone Gaming in Minneapolis. I think he top 4'd, right? Or top 8?
I know he topped 8.
Top 8,
No,
definitely.
he didn't make top 8.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did.
Did he?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to look this up because I don't think he did.
With mono red prowess.
Yep. So,
He made top 8.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
Wasn't a Hogak deck.
No, it was not a Hogak deck.
So I think it was semi his home brew too.
Yes.
So that was pretty cool. There's a couple of those in the top 20, and it was then Hogak beyond that for the most part.
I loved seeing the day 2 breakdown. Twiddlestorm, 1 deck.
Yeah, right. It was literally one. That
It's
was
too
funny.
powerful, ban it, ban Twiddlestorm.
So how about games this week? Chris didn't play, although he was in the shop. Chris's son was in the shop at one point, walking through it. I'm like, oh, that looks like Chris's kid. And then it took me like 3 or 4 seconds. I'm like, that's Chris's kid. And I looked around, I'm like, there's Chris.
The best part is we all stopped and waited for you to get that
It took me.
realization.
It was like very much a joke.
Come on, let's do this.
The grenade took a second to go off. I'm like, oh, there's Chris. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I looked at a friend's car on Tuesday because she's leaving for Oregon.
Okay.
So I had to go over everything with that. And then we looked at my wife's car because leaking antifreeze. And by then I'm like, you know what? We're just going to go play Pokemon Go tonight. That's what we're going to do.
Nice.
Sounds like a fun night. How about you, Max? How are your games?
I played 3 games this week. I played 1 with you.
Yep.
Took that game down with Tuvasa after quickly eliminating Dana.
Yes.
I heard something about scumbags or something
Yeah,
on Twitter
probably.
about that.
He wrecked me.
Retether's a card. It does
Yes.
a lot of work in that deck.
For sure.
And then I ended up playing 2 games with a friend of the show, Matt's Ilharg deck.
Oh, okay.
That was a lot of fun to play the Pumbaa for a couple games. Never closed a game out, but I always took second. I always came down to me and someone else.
So speaking of Ilharg, I had a guy who did a Turbo Modern event where the guy that he's playing against went through the breach, Ilharg, into Emrakul and attacked him for 21.
Oh, ouch.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
GG.
Well, there was one card in particular I want to talk about. My games were fine. I didn't have anything super noteworthy, except for I was in a comment that Coalition Relic did a ton of work for me in my Jeru deck. But then I got thinking about that. So what I was doing was I had thrown a Geth out, which lets you sacrifice an artifact to proliferate.
Yep.
Tap, sacrifice an artifact to proliferate. 90% of the time, I just tap it to sack itself and put a counter on my Planeswalkers, and that's worth 2 mana, generally. Except for in this game, I had the second Karn out that makes the artifact...
The construct token.
The construct token. And I had rolled him up once or twice before then. So with the proliferate trigger, then I was able to -2 him to make the token, sacrifice the token because it's a construct to proliferate everything, and put 1 counter back on him. So basically I want it being then a -1 to do it. And then put counters on the rest of my Planeswalkers and everything else, including that Coalition Relic, because I was putting the counter on Coalition Relic. I'd then proliferate that counter up, and then next turn take the 2 off to get 2 mana off it. So I was going to say I was getting 2 mana off Coalition Relic every single turn for the most part. However, that was it. It was 2 mana, and that was the best case scenario if I was proliferating repeatedly every turn. And I'm like, man, why am I running this? I could just run a Worn Power Stone. It doesn't come into play tapped, but it makes me 2 mana every single turn regardless. It's a mono white deck, so I don't need the white that much because my lands mostly make white, so I don't need a rock that makes mana. And Worn Power Stone's going to give me 2 mana every single time, even if I don't have that proliferate trigger out.
Yep.
So I was going to say I did a lot of work, but in thinking about it, I'm like, I would be better off in that deck just running Worn Power Stone most of the time, because if I wouldn't have had that Throne of Geth out, that was just making me 1 mana most of the time, and Power Stone would have made me 2 every single time.
Yep.
So there are probably decks where that does work, maybe Atraxa or something, where you consistently have the proliferate on your commander at no cost to you every turn.
Or if you're playing Paradox Engine. Oh, wait, it's banned.
Yeah, I mean, but in that deck, in that situation, I'm like, I think I'm just better off with a mana rock that makes 2.
Oh, I would agree with that.
And that was a game I should have won and lost, and it was a situation where at the end, I had too much going on, and I just stopped doing things because I thought I was going to kill the player next turn, and I didn't. He killed me with like a unexpected, double strike into something else and took me out.
Insurrection.
It wasn't that. but I had the answer in hand. I had Parallax, the Prox Wave, I think the white enchantment that comes into play, and then you can, comes into play with 5 counters. You can remove a counter and exile out a permanent until there's no counters on it anymore, and then they all come back in.
Okay.
So how I usually use in that deck is to blink Jeru. I pull a counter off at Blink Jeru, next turn Blink Jeru again, whatever. Or if I happen to need to deal with an attacker, I can just deal with them for two turns till it goes away. That's usually fine too.
Yep.
It's instant speed though, so I had that, and I could have played it from my hand and then dealt with his attacker that killed me. And at that point, I'm like, I had like 9 Planeswalkers out, and between the Chain Veil and proliferated triggers, I was just like, I'm just going to pass a turn because it's just too much nonsense. And then he killed me. Like, I should have just played the Parallax Wave and I would have been okay, but that was me being sloppy and or lazy and or whatever. So,
what time of night was this?
This was the last game of the night, too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So if you want to reach out to us on social media and say hi or make fun of me for not winning a game because I got lazy, how would you do that, Max?
I don't know. Chris typically does this when we're all together.
I don't know, Dana. How do we do this? So I will take it from here, gentlemen, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Chris.
You can find us on Twitter at CMDR Central. You can Facebook search us, CMDR Central. You can YouTube search us, CMDR Central, and find us online at cmdrcentral.com.
You can also find us on Patreon by searching CMDR Central. Go over there, check out our new reward tiers if you're so kind and willing to help support the show. That goes a long way, keeping the lights on, and apparently people are deciding what kind of pants I get to wear on video now.
That's been a conversation.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Chaps, I assume that was the discussion.
Chaps was one. Kilt is a big proponent. People are voting for the kilt.
Listen, a kilt sounds comfortable as all heck to me. Nice breeze blowing in the room. That sounds all right.
We also have a couple new patrons to say thank you to. So we want to say thank you to JE3, Brody Mickle, and Superior Geoduck 9. So thank you for everybody for supporting us.
Thank you all very much. And we have a few contests wrapping up. Not wrapping up. There's still a couple weeks left.
Yeah.
But.
So for all of our patron supporters and people who are able to support us by the end of the month, you'll get entered to win the Lord Windgrace Planeswalker card and the full art altar of it, done by local friend of the show, Ben Johnston.
Yeah.
And for Twitter, we are giving away that signed Great Defender from Legends, signed by Mark Poole. So that's all we got for contests.
All right. How's the T-shirt race going, you two?
Chris is on the board.
Is he?
Oh, I am. Thank you.
But I'm still outpacing.
Yeah, I know you are.
Everyone.
The Scumbags Unite's a pretty good slogan on a T-shirt.
Yep.
That's all right. You're doing okay there. I think
you're beating Dana.
That's true. I've just bought one for myself, two for myself.
And those the ones we bought for ourselves don't count.
Let's see, I got 3 of them, didn't I? 1, 2, 3.
You couldn't get a hot pink.
Yeah.
I know you said that.
Yep.
Thought you were disappointed.
Those were private orders, not public orders. I placed those under our account versus a generic someone.
I think that's going to be it for important business to take care of. Let's talk about these decks.
Let's do it.
All right. So what we did here was
I don't know what else to talk about.
we each grabbed the deck. So we drew our number from a hat. Chris came into the shop when we were playing this week with numbers and hats. We drew a number from hats. We each got a deck. So there's one of them we're not going to talk about for the most part. We're just going to, and we each got one, and we're going to discuss what we would do to buff that deck if you got that one and wanted to improve it as it is. And then we'll also discuss some cards in it that we like, that kind of thing. But Max, you want to start us out here? Since you got the deck, you got your favorite deck.
I got the deck nobody wanted. I got Faceless Menace, I believe. That's the Sultai deck.
Yep.
So yeah, this deck is going to come with, Kadena, Slinking Sorcerer, 1 Sultai for a 3/3. The first face-down creature spell you cast each turn costs 3 less. So guess what, everybody? This is the Morph deck.
Yep. And here's probably the reason that at least the reason I didn't want this one, and I'm going to guess it's the same for all of us. You have one way to build it. If you're building Kadena,
yes,
you have to build morphs, and you're going to put the same 30 or 40 morph and or morph supporting, Trail of Mystery kind of cards, Dream Chisel, whatever, in the deck as everybody else. I think it's Dream Chisel that makes morphs cost less.
I have no idea.
So your deck's going to look very similar to everybody else building the same exact deck just because there's so few things that interact with morph.
Right. And then, of course, whenever a face-down creature does enter the battlefield, you get to draw a card. So
that's good if you're playing morphs. That's a nice ability.
Yep. It also comes with the 2 backup commanders of Volrath the Shapestealer, which we just did a Decks You Play on this last week. And then Rayami, First of the Fallen, which is a 5/4 vampire for 1 in Sultai, and if a non-token creature would die, exile that card with a blood counter on it instead, as long as the exiled card with a blood counter on it has flying. Rayami has it as well. It works for pretty much every keyword. So it's another Odric 2.0 in different colors.
Yeah. And that was always kind of the problem with Odric, I think. It was, everyone's like, well, you're stuck in mono white, though, and it'd be so cool if it had 1 more color. Well, now you have 2 more colors. It's probably the best 3-color combination, too. So
with the most keywords on it, probably.
Yep. And it's interesting. They actually added Protection, Menace, and as 2 extra keywords that Odric does not get.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there is any white Menace, to be honest.
And I think Odric has a couple of ones that were unique to that block. I think Skulk is on that list that are just not very useful at all to you anyway. So
So the way I looked at this is if you're going to play this right out of the box, you kind of need to lean into the morphs. That's where all the cards are really supporting it in the deck.
Yes. Because I think if you switch to one of the other commanders, you'd wind up pulling almost all the morph stuff.
Yep. So everybody has kind of already talked about what morph cards you should put in here on other podcasts.
Yep.
So I'm going to...
Brine Elemental.
Yes.
Well, yeah. Right. Yeah.
So I wanted to take this a really interesting way of what can you do with the morphed creatures that are that are the morph tokens. And I came up with Convoke.
Sure. Interesting.
Because you can pay for all the colorless pips in your Convoke casts with the morph creatures, and then you can really utilize your mana pretty well with your colored sources.
So can't play Hogak, though.
Still can't play Hogak.
Hogak would be one you should throw in the deck, though.
It definitely should be in that deck.
Yeah.
So there are 27 Convoke cards in Sultai.
Yep.
The most notable ones being Hogak, Court of Calling, obviously, to go find your Crater Hoof, because all your morphs will then get +X in haste. And then Feaster of Fools is the new demon from Modern Horizons that has Devour 2 and Convoke.
With Convoke, yes.
Yeah.
So I just thought that'd be a really cool way to take your deck, use those morph creatures, because morph doesn't use the stack, so you can tap them, cast your card, and then unmorph them for your Den Protector or your Deathmist Raptor, which I think would be a lot of fun. Other cards I think you should probably throw in the deck would be stuff that gives everything flash, because every time you cast one each turn, it's free. So Leyline of Anticipation is dirt cheap right now. It's like $4 or $5. Vidalcan Orrery is $20+ if you really want to go and bust your budget on something like that.
I think the Fairy Archmage of Zelfir or whatever, I do believe as a morph, you should be able to cast it as flash, because it's still a creature.
Yes.
And everyone's mentioned this, but the commander, the ability only triggers for the first morph you cast on the turn.
On each turn.
You mentioned Vidalcan Orrery, Leyline of Anticipation. This is definitely not some secret tech we're revealing here, because I've heard it from everybody. But we should at least mention those are definitely worth running in the deck just to abuse that mechanic for sure.
Yeah. Otherwise, other cards in the deck that are really nice, every deck this year got a nice chunk of reprints.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really happy with the 4R5 $6 reprints versus the one $20 reprint that makes everybody buy that deck, and you see the other ones sitting on the shelf 4 Christmases from now. So, like, Temptress Discovery got reprinted again.
Yeah.
That's a great card, especially when you play these right out of the box. You still say no, everybody. Still say no.
Yes, right.
Say no to Tempt, Chris.
No, because I go for my Strip Miner, my Ghost Grinder. I'm just like, bring it, homie.
This deck has a lot of removal in it. I think I would just try to tune it a little better. Sultai Charm are like Putrefied. That's great. It kills an artifact or a creature, but if you want to go up something, get Assassin's Trophy. Sudden Spoiling would be great in this deck, especially if you're facing off against another morph deck, because it gets rid of morph. Overall, I was not a fan of getting this deck. It's probably the one deck I will not buy of all 4.
Okay.
Mac's exact words, will you trade with me?
I did. I literally looked at this, I'm like, I'll trade you. Here's $5. Let's trade.
I think it's probably the most narrow deck in terms of what you're going to build with it. So.
Yeah. But otherwise, it's going to be fun to play out of the box, and that's about it. I do like the backup commanders more than the face commander.
Yeah. One card I thought of in this deck, or maybe 2, that I don't know how well they would work with your Convoke strategy, but Veil of the Nightclad, who are in an artifact creature deck, gives colorless creatures more or less unblockable. They can only be blocked by artifact creatures at that point. So she would be one I would maybe consider in that morph version of that deck. She's going to let you just swing through and kill somebody. You will get some damage if somebody board wipes too, so I think she's fairly useful there. And I think Muragana Petroglyphs is an enchantment out of Time Spiral block that gives your creatures a +3/+3. +2/+2,
I do believe.
+2 if they're vanilla. And there's not a lot of great anthems necessarily in those colors. White usually gets the best ones. Being able to buff your morph creatures isn't bad either.
Yeah, make some 4/4s for 3 mana, if not less.
Yeah. So that's one you could consider if you were going that route too and you're trying to find a way. One good thing about that, if you're really leaning into those morphs, is you're in green. So you can always run a Crater Hoof. You can always put Overwhelming Stampede or Overrun or any of those variants in there that will at least give you a way to, even Scale Up is pretty solid anymore. Will give you a way to actually win the game. That was sometimes a problem in that Animar deck. Your win condition was Animar for the most part. I guess you also have access to green there, but a lot of times...
But Animar's nearly impossible to remove from the battlefield, though, too.
It was so easy to just count on Animar in that deck for the most part, or a combo win of some sort where you're bouncing something repeatedly and recasting it. So yeah, I think I get why you didn't necessarily want this one, because it's fairly narrow. Do you like the other 2 commanders in the deck?
I do. I like them both a lot. I like Volrath. I think it's a really cool design space of copying creatures, being able to do that at instant speed. We talked about that on our last deck tech.
Yep.
I think I would go with the more make all my creatures really cool versus relying on my opponents to have cool stuff, because you might run up to a bear deck.
Right.
Well, I don't really want to copy a grizzly bear.
Right.
So if it's Ayula, I would.
True. And then the other one, the keyword commander, is super cool as well. It interacts with that blood counter or that... what was the Mardu one that put the cage counter on it from a few years back.
Marisol the Pretender.
Yep, similar type
Grixis.
Yeah.
Yep, similar type of.
Yeah, Grixis.
It
Yeah,
was
no idea.
Grixis. Sorry, Chris was staring me down. And I like keywords. Keywords are fun.
And there's some other fun cards in here. Thought Sponge is kind of neat. Thieving Amalgam is pretty cool. Apex Altosaurus. There's some good cards in here too that will wind up in other decks that aren't this one for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's a Seedboard Muse in here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's definitely a deck you could probably part out and use it other places.
Yeah. All right. Chris, what deck are you looking at here?
I have the wonderful deck called Mystic Intellect, or Flashback! So I did this a little different than what Max did. So I'm going to do a breakdown of this. There's 20 creatures, 28 instant or sorceries, 4 enchantments, 7 artifacts, 1 planeswalker, and 40 lands.
40 lands is a lot.
I don't know why there was 40 lands in here, but there is. Oh, wait, no, I do know why. There's an awesome little scarecrow in here that whenever he becomes tapped, you can play a land from your hand or do something else. Okay. So I went through this deck, and I was very surprised to see how much more rounded this was than what I thought it would be.
Okay.
I was expecting this to be like a Mizzix deck where it's just like straight up spells in the face, blah, 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 blah. Now, 17 out of the 28 instant sorceries have flashback. Now, this is actually the key word of flashback.
Yep.
Because there's a few of them that have the Aftermath or Jumpstart, which is still flashback, in my opinion.
And it counts for triggering the commander abilities that care about cards being cast from the graveyard.
Yes. Now, but this is not the only thing the deck can do. So we'll focus on just the spells for right now.
Okay.
You have cards like the enchantment of Secrets of the Dead, which is a 2 and a blue CMC for an enchantment. And you have River Kelpie, which is a 3 double blue for a 3/3 creature. Now, both of these cards state when you cast a card from the graveyard, you get to draw a card. So that right there, you just get massive amounts of card advantage.
Those are both cards that are either amazing because your deck is built to abuse them,
Yes.
or you would never consider running them because they're terrible because your deck doesn't have any way to to use the ability.
Now,
So that,
River Kelpie is kind of cool too because it has persist, so it's whenever a card comes back
true. It
too.
triggers
So,
itself.
so you could do a persist theme with like that card, but that's a whole nother story for that.
Yeah, Secrets of the Dead is a card I'm a big fan of. In the decks where I've seen it played because it's built around it, it does a ton of work.
Yeah. So I mean, between that, I mean, if you get the flashback online, that works pretty good. So.
What else?
So let's move on to the other features of the deck.
Sure.
Now, most of the time, like I was saying with Mizzix, it's all about spells.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're just slinging spells, slinging spells, slinging spells. But this deck has another route that it can take. For instance, we're going to take out Pristine Angel and Pristine Skywise. Now, both of these cards are reprints. They both have an ability that when they're untapped, well, the Angel, when it's untapped, has protection from artifacts and from all colors. Now, whenever you cast a spell, you may untap it. And this is a 4/4 beater for 6 mana. Now, Pristine Skywise is 6 mana for a 6/4 beater that has, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, untap it against protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. So this allows you to give beats in.
Yes.
The deck also comes with Talrand, which is another way of just casting your spells, getting beaters out there, and going to town, which I really like the double influence of the deck. You don't have to rely on your spells. You can still win doing other things.
And you're getting that added value for doing the thing you wanted to be doing. Secrets of the Dead, which we mentioned a minute ago, is rewarding you for the thing you were already doing, which is casting flashback spells. These are the same things. They're sitting there just passively generating value for you doing the thing you were going to be doing, which is casting spells.
Agreed. So, onward to what everyone wants to hear about, the commanders.
All right.
So, we have Savine, the Chronoclasm. I probably just butchered that name if I did.
butchered all mine.
I
It's
think
fine.
that's right. That sounds right to me.
So, for 2 and Wooburg, which is blue-red-black, or blue-red-white. Wow, I said black. They're going to get me on Twitter for
The
that.
Jeskai folk will be mad.
For a legendary creature, human wizard, 2/2. Now, prevent all damage that would be dealt to Savine, the Chronoclasm. Whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell from your graveyard each turn, copy that spell. You may choose new copies for new targets for that copy. I do believe this is the face card commander of this deck.
Yes,
Yes, it is.
Yep.
Which is definitely pretty good for that aspect, I would agree. The other one, this one, just skipping over it because I don't like this one anyways, is Pramicon Sky Rampart, which is a legendary creature wall.
Ooh.
For exactly Jeskai, your blue, red, and white. It's a 1/5. Flying Defender. Now, as it enters the battlefield, choose left or right. Each player may attack only the nearest opponent in the chosen direction and or planeswalker that opponent controls. So this one's cool, neat, all that, but I really don't think it fits in this deck.
It's a very chaos card. Like, you could build a Jeskai chaos deck and make everybody do all this type of stuff.
Or it could be a Pillowfort deck.
Oh,
because
for sure.
As your general, you look at the table and you're like, okay, you're playing this deck and you're playing this deck. Well, you're not doing anything, so I'm going to cast my general, and you have to be the one who attacks me.
Yeah, Jeskai Super Friends probably work pretty well for, since you can only get hit by one person then at that point, and you have this beater wall in play to protect your planeswalkers.
Yeah, which is really, I mean, it's something to do. I mean, I know we had someone talk about us building Pillowfort decks.
Or Group Hug, I believe.
Group Hug, same thing. I mean, that's one way I look at it. You got a Pillowfort to Group Hug. And then the third one is Elsha of the Infinite, which is 2 in Jeskai. For a legendary creature, Jin Monk, who is a 3/3. Has prowess, and you may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast the top card of your library if it is a non-creature, non-land card, and you may cast it as though it had flash.
That's bonkers.
This one, I still don't think it's quite swap-outable right out of the box.
Okay.
But I definitely think this one is totally, you can build around this. Mm-hmm. It makes Shu Yun just kind of go into the wind now, in my opinion.
Yep.
Which Shu Yun would be in the deck if you built it that way.
Yeah.
So, where should we go? We're going to go onward again.
All right.
So here are a few things that I would change in the deck. And I only chose out 3 things because I don't want to like neuter the deck card.
Right.
I wanted to do this as, if I were to buy this deck as a pre-con and I swapped out just a few cards that I had on hand with other cards to make it still fun with other people at pre-cons. So the very first one is Past in Flames.
Yeah.
I don't know why Past in Flames is not in this deck.
Because it's been reprinted 1,000 times, and
it's relatively cheap. It's $1, so I think.
That's, I don't know. I would add Past in Flames, and I would remove Stormherd. Now, while I love Stormherd as a card, I don't think it fits in this deck.
Sure.
At 10 mana, you don't have much mana ramp in it. And then you spit out tokens equal to your life total. Which, honestly, if you're a Spellslinger deck, and I've seen it numerous times, people turn on you in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah. They will not let you have that lying around.
It also doesn't help that there's not a lot of life gain in this deck to begin with. So, I mean, like you said, the table's going to turn on you because you're playing the Spellslinger deck, and then you spend 10 mana for, 10 to 20 tokens, which that's still 10 to 20 tokens.
That, I mean, that's if you get it early. If you get it late and you're only at, 10 life, I don't really think it pays for itself.
No.
The other one I would do is I would add God Eternal Kefnet, and I would remove Zetalpa Primal Dawn. Now, Kefnet has the invasion that Zetalpa has. Not quite with Indestructible and Double Strike and everything. But Kefnet is also hard to remove, too, because it just keeps going back into the deck. Zetalpa is just, I don't know why it's in the deck to begin with. I really don't understand, because it doesn't fit the theme of the deck.
Yeah.
Kefnet also allows you to just take advantage of, oh, hey, let's say we're playing Elsha, and I look at the top card, and I'm like, oh, cool. I'll set this up for Kefnet and flip this, pay 2 colorless less, and blam, 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 and draw that card. So the last cards that I would remove, I would remove Ralzeric. Now, this Ralzeric's the 4-mana one that it allows you to Lightning Bolt and...
Tap target permanent, then untap something else.
Yep, and then take some extra turns, which I'm not a big fan of that one.
And it's a coin flip on extra turns, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. I would actually add either Baby Narset or Baby Teferi.
Sure.
My I would add Baby Teferi for the ability to uptick, allow me to cast my sorcery speed flashback spells at instant speed.
The Fairy's Nice, that really interacts with the deck and how it's working, because you're going to get then the...
And it prevents your opponents from casting instant speed spells at you to remove your stuff. So that would be my 3 choices, because these were also cards I have just laying around that I would put in if I were to buy the deck.
Okay.
So for overall, I give this deck about a 4 out of 5, just as it is coming right out of the deck. They mesh. Most of it meshes together. Some of it doesn't. Going from there, anything you guys would add? Swap out?
I like your idea of swapping out Ral for Baby Teferi. I actually was thinking put the new Ral in there from War of the Spark.
You could put the new Ral, he surveils, and then you can give something...
Doesn't he ping every time you cast...
Yes.
So, you're doing more damage, the newest one,
Yes.
So he's doing more damage on top of all these spells you're casting.
Yeah, I mean, you could put Niv Mizzet in here. I didn't want to go too crazy on it. I just wanted to do a couple, so you're not, walking in and you're like, oh, yeah, I got this pre-con, and I swapped out, 10 cards, and they're like, oh, okay, I see how it is.
There's a couple of interesting new cards in here. We can talk about for a minute.
Yep.
Start with Leadership Vacuum, where you choose a commander and bounce it, and it's a choice. Or you choose the player.
The player.
And so it gets around, because actually in the art, it's Ural the Mistcaller getting bounced back to the person's hand.
Totally is.
So that's a neat effect. That's a way to get around those annoying Hexproof and Shroud commanders. Is that something you just generally run, or is that much more meta-specific? Because I think it's a good card, but I don't know if I want it in my deck all the time.
I think it's going to have to be meta-specific, like especially if you're playing against someone who's got a lot of the Hexproof type commanders or something. Or if someone's stealing a bunch of commanders, because it says it returns each commander that they control.
Right.
So, I mean, if someone's stealing everyone's commanders, you're just like, bounce them all back, and let's start over.
Yeah, I think it's a cool card, but I think it's a little too narrow. I think it's the one you run where, like, you play kitchen table on Sunday nights with 3 buddies, and one of them has a Ural deck, and the other one has like a Sigarda deck, and everyone only has 2 or 3 decks. So like consistently in every game, you're seeing something that can't be targeted. I think that's when you run it, but I think it's maybe a little too narrow beyond that. I like the design, but I don't think it's maybe quite good enough to just generically run.
I guess I agree with that. It's kind of not good enough for generically running, but at the same time, it's a cool interaction. It's cheaper than Rift. Any type of bounce spell. The only way you're going to get around it is with like you having hexproof through a Leyline or Aegis of the Gods.
Right.
I think people run Grease, people run Boots for just to make sure their commander is safe or their one key creature, and I think it depends on the meta, but I also wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing this on like EDH Rec, the numbers just start going up on it because it does get around all those ways people protect their commanders.
Right.
See, I can see this being played in like your Talrand deck, for instance. Because it is a cantrip card, instant speed, and it bounces something for you.
How about Dockside Extortionist, which has gotten a little bit of press? That's the goblin that comes into play and makes a treasure token for each artifact or enchantment, or just artifacts?
Each number of artifact and enchantments your opponents control. Woofda.
That is, so last year everyone was really excited about the
Treasure Nabber.
The Treasure Nabber, which never saw much play, and when it has seen play, at least didn't see much play around here, and when I saw it, it's fine, but it never seemed that powerful. I think this is the real deal. This seems like a legit strong card to run in a whole lot of red decks.
Well, yeah, I mean, even if your opponents say they have 4 overall, you're netting 4 treasure tokens. I mean, for 2 mana, I think that's perfect.
I mean, unless somebody just cast like a Chroma's Vengeance or something, you're probably going to come out mana ahead.
Yep.
Even if it's only 2 or 3 mana ahead. And you could very easily come out 10 or 12 mana ahead. And if you're playing in some kind of a black-red deck that has Revel and Riches for some other reason, I mean, there's decks where this plays into your win condition already, whether it's Hellkite, is it the Tyrant or Charger that wants 20 artifacts?
Tyrant,
or it's in the right colors for multiple alt-win conditions with artifacts. So
I want to see someone play this after someone has Smothering Tithe in play for like 12 turns and no one pays for it, and they're just like, boom!
just draw everything at that point.
This card is really cool. I'm kind of surprised it's in this deck versus like the Rakdos deck, but it's 3 colors, so I think that's why they did it, so you can help you get your mana up, even though it has 40 lands in the deck.
Right.
I see this going in a lot of Boros decks just because everybody plays artifacts, most people play enchantments, and Boros needs all the help it can get.
How about Mandate of Peace? That's a semi-fog kind of thing, fog/silence, where it ends the combat step. So that will function as a fog, and it then prevents your opponent from casting spells
for the rest of the
turn. But you can only cast it during combat. You guys think of that?
I like it, but I don't at the same time. Like in a 1v1 setting, I would definitely want to run this card because a lot of people are like, okay, so you're trying to bait everything out, so it's like go right to combat, skip main phase 1, attack, and you're just like play that. My turn? I mean, that's pretty much where it's going to take you.
So over like the white fogs, like Holy Day, for example, is the obvious one. It's 1 mana for a fog, basically. The advantage this has is, number 1, you're paying an extra mana, but you're shutting them off second main phase. But fog just prevents damage. It doesn't stop attack triggers or combat triggers, those kind of things. This does. This just like, I'm going to attack with this thing that's going to, then cause this to happen. You're like, I'm just going to empty the stack right now in the combat step, and you're not going to get your Kalia Dragon.
Yep.
which fog will keep it from damaging you, but it's not going to keep it from being out and in play, that kind of thing.
Yep.
I definitely think in a pillow fort type deck, this would be phenomenal because you're just trying to stop everything from happening.
I think if I was running Holy Day, if I was running a couple white fog effects, or even some green ones that weren't, what's the repeatable green fog that I just forgot the name?
Constant Miss.
Constant Miss. Because Constant Miss is insane. But like if I was running a fog, like a regular fog, or running Holy Day, if I was in white and didn't have access to green, this probably would be the second one I would run, I would think. Just because the ability to shut off them from casting spells. And a lot of people don't cast spells in that first main phase. They're waiting until after combat to make that, to minimize the information you have. So that's going to shut that off too. I think that's a pretty effective one if you were already wanting to run fogs.
Yes.
I don't know if it's going to make me start running fogs if I'm already not doing that.
Yeah.
So that was one, that was an interesting card.
The fog general just got a new fog.
I find it weird though. Yeah. The reminder text says exile all spells and abilities from the stack, including the spell. So this is something you don't get back.
Right.
So there's like a mini Teferi's protection.
Yeah. Kind of, yeah.
That, I mean, it's cool, but it's not something you can flash back, unfortunately.
Last thing I'll mention here, how about the Gerard card, who's the 2-mana Boros Planeswalker in there? I see how he works, and I understand, it's number one kind of white protection. You can play eggs or something to get your stuff back and after you cast him, but, man, I don't know if that's particularly interesting to me. Is it to you guys at all?
It's not bad, I guess. Like, if I were to play this as a general, I think I would just it would be Gerard, a whole bunch of weenies, and every single Wrath effect I could find.
Because you're going to bounce back from them every time.
Yep, you're just going to be like, Wrath everything. You're going to be like, oh, he goes to the graveyard, exile them, trigger everything, they come back, go.
It's definitely an interesting, like, Boros ETB type of deck.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that makes sense, too.
There's some cool stuff in red that, like that treasure, that goblin that makes all the treasures.
Bunked that back in and out with Gerard a few times. That's all right.
There's a bunch of stuff in white that does stuff when it comes back in Palace Jailer, all your Oblivion Ring type creatures, and it's artifacts too. So there goes all your mana rocks and stuff like that.
Too bad it didn't say lands, because I would be in heaven.
Yeah.
Scumbag.
I wouldn't. Well, that's the thing, is that if you're playing mass land destruction that said lands, if your opponents got mad at you, I'd be like, why? Why are you getting mad? Because all I'm doing is I'm advancing my board state. Yeah. I'm just shutting you guys down.
And also, in a way, it's one of those kind of like Archangel Avacyn or Avatar Angel of Hope, where when you mass land destruction there and you keep all your lands, you're just going to win the game.
Yep.
Like, this is a similar thing where if your lands are all bouncing back from it, you're just probably going to win, and that's what it is.
Yeah. They should have put lands on there, because I would have been like, Boros General time. Right, here we go.
All right, are we moving on to me?
Yes.
Yes, let's see. Which deck did you get, Dana?
I got the Madness deck.
Of course he did.
Which is called Merciless Rage. So I thought about this one for a while, and everyone went with a face card for the commander they picked, so I did the same thing here. So the face card is Andre Falconrath. She has haste and 3 mana, so 1, a black and a red. Discard a card is her tap ability, and draw a card. And whenever you discard a card, if it has Madness, untap Andre Falconrath. So the second she comes into play, the first thing you can do is do that rummaging where you discard a card and draw a card. Assuming you pitch a Madness card, you can, untap her and do it again, and if you have another Madness card, do it again. So you can possibly do that multiple times per turn to put those Madness cards in your graveyard. And if they then have something that's relatively efficiently costed, you could then cast it for that Madness cost and bring it back, and there's a good amount of value you can generate off her. The problem with that, and the problem with, I think it was the second Olivia card that didn't really necessarily say Madness on it, or didn't tell you to play Madness, but it made sense to play with Madness. How do you win with that? You can usually generate pretty good value off Madness, but you still need to plan how to win a game other than just cast a few Madness things and save some mana, casting them for the Madness cost. So what I think you'll want to do with this deck, and what I'm going to suggest you do with it, is lean pretty hard into the Reanimator package, and not just solo reanimation, although I think you do want some Animate Dead and maybe Necromancy kind of cards to bring back some beaters. But I think your game-winning plan here with this deck is to win with a big mass reanimation spell that's going to bring a ton of things back and just kill people particularly because you have access to haste in these colors. So you have things like Fervor or Hammer of Perforos that give all your guys haste. You have things like In the Web of War that gives your stuff haste, and when it comes into play, gives a +2/+0.
Yep.
And you have Ogre Battle Driver, a creature that also gives your stuff haste and +2/+0 when it comes into play. So if you combine those things with things like Living Death or Living End or Balthor the Defiled as an older creature that you sacrifice Balthor and everyone brings all black and red creatures from their graveyard back into play, well, that's, occasionally you're going to have an opponent that brings some black stuff back, but that's all your stuff. And then the last one will be Rise of the Dark Realms. It's crept up in price. It's like over $10 now, but most of my suggestions here are relatively budget. I think if you spend $10 on that to bring all your stuff back and everyone else's stuff that you've been pitching with Madness, that's how you're going to win. You're going to combine one of those cards with a haste enabler, and you're just going to kill everybody.
Yeah.
So that's what my plan here would be, was to lean into that. One nice thing about that, too, is both the other sub-commanders in this deck kind of play pretty nicely with that plan. You have Grievin, Predator Captain. He has Menace, and he's 5 mana. He gets +X/+O, where X is the amount of life you've lost this turn. Now, if he was your commander, you'd probably be running more life loss stuff like Necropotence or the black draw spells that deal damage to you to buff him. But the other ability he has is whenever he attacks, you can sacrifice another creature, and if you do, draw cards equal to that creature's power and lose life equal to its toughness. So again, that's stuff that you can sacrifice, buff him up, draw some cards, dome somebody, and then reanimate the creature that you sacrificed. And if you're running things like ETB abilities, like a Gear Hulk or like a Grave Titan or whatever, you're going to double up those abilities too when you're bringing them back in addition to drawing the cards. So there's some nice stacking synergy there. Same thing with Chainer, the third commander. Chainer is 4 mana for a human minion, and the effect is discard a card. You may cast a creature card from your graveyard this turn. Activate this ability only once each turn. And whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if you didn't cast it from your hand, it gains haste. So then that combos with, even if you don't have your haste enablers out for the big Living Death or Rise of the Dark Realms swing, Chainer is one more haste enabler there. It's one more way to proc Madness by discarding the card. The thing that goes in your graveyard, you can either recast with Chainer or one of your Animate Dead abilities. So I think there's a lot of synergy with building it with Anjay as your commander and leaning into that kind of mass reanimation thing. So I've got a few things I'm going to suggest for changes here. The very first thing I would do, it's got 39 lands. I don't think you need 39 lands in a 2-color deck. I would immediately yank out Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse.
Of course you would.
But they're cheap. Like if you're playing, if this was a 5-color deck,
right,
and you were not going to spend $400 in your mana base, I would run them both for sure, because they will go get you whatever land you need to fix. And there's so much money you'd have to pour into that mana base to make it so you didn't need those cards. But this isn't that. This is a 2-color deck. I mean, you could probably fairly effectively run this with all basics, and you'd probably be okay. But you don't have to do that. There's a bunch of relatively cheap Rakdos lands, because Rakdos doesn't see that much play in other formats. The lands tend to be cheaper than everything else anyway. Foreboding Ruins, which was in Shadows over Innistrad, is $1. Smoldering Marsh is $1.50. Tainted Peaks is 50 cents. Temple of Mouse is under $1. Dragon Skull Summit is $3. Sulphurous Springs is $5. Shadowblood Ridge is $3. Even Blood Crypt is like $9 right now.
Well, because it just got that reprint that's still standard.
Graven Karns, which was the one out of Lorwyn, is $4 or $5. So you could very easily build a pretty good mana base here, ignoring everything but maybe the fetch, the ABUR duel and the fetch land. You could pump $25 in this mana base and have it be really, really, really good.
Yeah.
So I know in my Mogus deck I had all the dual lands for it, and you never really needed it.
Yeah. So that would be the first thing I would change. The creatures, some of this is intentional. Like, they want you to have a path to upgrade. I mentioned how some of those lands are cheap. Like, they absolutely could have put Tainted Peak in here for 50 cents. It's not going to affect the value of the deck.
Right.
But they want to make you, as the player,
do it.
Go find those things and improve your deck. I think I do get those things.
I do have to say one thing. Wizards is like me. They like the lockets.
Yeah.
No signets, lockets in decks.
Yeah.
Well, and I would maybe leave those in anyway. I think those aren't bad cards necessarily. And I would add the signet in. I would add the new talisman in, and then you're already looking at a pretty decent mana rock package too. It comes with a soul ring. You throw in the signet, you throw in the talisman, and you have the locket already in there.
Yeah.
You're doing okay for your artifact mana base as well.
I'm kind of surprised knowing that Grevin was printed as the backup commander. There wasn't like a pain land in here just to help you.
Just for that purpose.
Just to activate it, because if you want to go that way, you actually want to run City of Brass and Mana Confluence in a 2-color deck because it's just going to help proc him more.
There's an old one, Tarnished Citadel, that's basically a City of Brass.
Pay 3 life,
but it's 3 life. Yeah. And so that, that's buffs Grevin by 3, just using your land to make you mana. So that would be one. And if I was playing that for the commander, I would run. Creature-wise, there's some decent stuff in here, like things that tend to come back from the graveyard. So you discard at the madness cost. Either it has madness or you discard something that you're going to bring back anyway. I think like Resummoning Skeletons is the kind of thing you want to add for small value creatures here. But I would, even if you just went through your standard stuff from the last year, Demon Lord Belzenlock is cheap.
Oh, yeah.
And if you can reanimate that and just dome somebody with it or have that in your graveyard when you cast your Eyes of the Dark Realms, and there's a handful of those. If you just like do a search on Scryfall for standard legal demons, Doom Whisperer is really good. Villas, Broker of Blood is really good. Do a search for standard legal dragons. You can find 3 or 4 standard legal dragons that are just houses that have good abilities and that you can get at your shop for $1. Or maybe even, have someone give you one after a draft because they've got 3 copies and they don't care. No one's played in Villas, Broker of Blood in standard for the most part. And then you can dig down deeper too and go back a few years. But like I mentioned, Grave Titan he's like $6 or something, but that's not. Is he more than that now?
Like
over
20?
Oh, you're kidding, really? Well, Max is going to look that up.
Because I wanted to draft him.
He hasn't seen a reprint since Commander.
That Commander 2014, you're probably right.
The cheapest copy, according to Scryfall, is the Commander 14 one for $14.
All right, so. But if you don't want to pay that, Sepulchral Primordial is legitimately a choice, and that's only like $4 or $5, I think.
And
And the Geared Hulks are relatively inexpensive as well.
You know what card I would put in this deck? Bridge from Below.
Yeah,
cheap. It got banned.
It got banned. Sure, grab your copy of that. Well, and similarly, the one I was thinking here that does a kind of a similar thing is Desecrated Tomb, that I think was in the core set last year. It's 3 mana for an artifact. Whenever 1 or more creature cards leave your graveyard, create a 1/1 black bat creature token with flying.
Yep.
So if you're Living Death or Living End or whatever, Balthor doesn't give you enough bodies, that could easily throw another 8 or 10 things down on the field that are going to allow you to just clock somebody. I think Army of the Dead, the problem with Army of the Dead is it makes 13 2/2 zombie tokens, but they come into play tapped, and you have to wait a full turn. But I think that gives you a backup plan here of something to cast or discard to Madness, because if you have to discard it to Andre's ability, it has the flashback on it, so you can still reuse it and get added value out of that. So that's what I would look at doing with this deck. There's a bunch of good value demons and dragons. I think that I would put in there. I would find some good things that generate value when you madness them, whether it's Resummoning Skeleton or Brood of Cockroaches, things like that when they're in your graveyard, you can get them back. That's a card I was a fan of. I put it in my Teysa Teysa Envoy Ghost deck. But there's a bunch of those kind of weird things that do that in these colors that you could bring back as well, and they're not expensive. And then you can tweak, because red and black has a lot of really good removal too. So you can tweak that removal suite very easily, and most of it's also relatively inexpensive. Terminate's a pretty cheap card. Dreadbore costs almost nothing if you don't mind having it be sorcery speed. A Braid was a standard powerhouse, but a Braid is not a bad card to run in an EDH deck. Bedevil is a legit card that does pretty good work. So there's a lot of things that you can run here too that are cheap and will let you, have a chance to win a game and keep yourself alive long enough to get that reanimation package off. So that's how I would tweak this deck in particular. Let's look at a few of the other cards here we want to talk about. Is there anything that jumps out at you guys or anything that you really like here? Crick, Son of Yawgmoth is the mono black one. I think I would leave that in the deck just as a reanimation target. It's really good.
Broken.
But yeah, as a
we'll
commander,
never print Phyrexia mana cards again.
Well, I didn't finish it. I watched maybe the first 5 or 6 minutes. Jumbo Commander did a video on how broken this commander is, and something happened where I was watching it at work, and then somebody came up. I haven't got back to finish it yet, but he was like, "If you do this and this, here's how you just do this infinite." Like, oh, that card is disgusting.
I do like Bone Miser. It's the waste knot on a body. That's a lot of fun, especially in this deck or any. I mean, I think it'd be fun in Alesha too because. Or you discard stuff to fill your graveyard, you make some zombies, you get some mana.
Verena Lich Queen, where you're discarding the zombies or discarding cards as part of her ability. I mean, just generate all the mana. And it's a zombie that plays nicely with the deck as well.
Yep. The issue with Verena, though, because that's all during combat, you have to make sure you discard. If you discard to get mana, you got to have something to use it
Have some way to use it, yeah. So, there's a lot of cool stuff there. Bloodthirsty Blade's kind of neat, although this is the deck I didn't quite understand why it was in, because that's a little bit chaotic. That's the
maybe it's just because they want a whole bunch of copies out in circulation. Well, actually, I don't know. Because I feel like this would be a better one, because there's kind of a Chaos Commander that's in the Naya deck, which is the one nobody drew. I thought it would make more sense there, and I guess I didn't look. Maybe it's also in that deck. I guess I didn't check to see if it was in more than one deck. It was in the Jeskai deck as well.
Was it? Okay.
Because of the wall.
Oh, sure. That makes sense. So we can just talk briefly for just a second. Did you guys like the Populate deck, the one we didn't do, the Naya deck?
I was looking forward to that one the most.
Okay.
Because it's in the colors I like to play.
Sure.
I think it's a really cool deck. I like the commander that makes the egg tokens.
Yes.
But overall, I actually was the most impressed by the Rakdos deck.
Yeah. The only two-color deck, but I liked it too.
Yeah.
The one thing I liked with the Populate deck was Populate wasn't a very good mechanic, I didn't think, in Standard, because it was so much 1/1 tokens at the time.
Yeah.
And that's pretty underwhelming to make one copy of a 1/1 token. This deck that has so many big beater tokens in it makes it a lot more interesting when you're copying a 4/4 token or a 6/6 token or something. So that's the deck I'm kind of most interested in. However, I think that's the most Timmy deck, too. That's all just like meat and potatoes. Like, that's how I describe it. I think EDH Redcast, I call it the meat and potatoes deck. But that's what it is. It's like very like basic, and I'm just going to make some stompy stuff and do stompy things.
Yeah.
But that's fun. I like that too. That'll probably be a fun deck to play just as the pre-con, because it'll probably be the best out of the box just because it's simple.
Right.
So total thoughts. So like last year, the big gripe from people was the decks didn't have enough value in them.
Correct.
And I don't think there's anything that's like a blowout $25 card here. There's definitely no Teferi's Protection.
That's true.
And there's no True Nemesis. And
according to MTG Goldfish, which is the site that I'm using for the deck list, Crick, Son of Yawgmoth is almost a $30 card.
Jeez. Well, okay. I said that, but in the doc, the Goblin is like 20, I think. Yeah, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe those will be the Teferi Protection of this set.
I think Crick will get played in Eternal formats. That's why he's so expensive.
And that Goblin's super, super good, too.
Yeah.
So maybe I said that there's no Trinity Nemesis, but maybe those would be. Who knows? The reprints, there's no like $10 reprints. There's no Wormcoil Engine kind of things here, or the Unturn Grave Titan. There's a lot of $2 or $3 cards here.
Yeah, there are a bunch of like the $3 to $6 cards in every deck that, to be honest, it's one of those things like, I don't know if I want to pick that up because it's $6. I can find something else. Well, here, cool. I now have another copy of Garrick Primal Hunter. That's nice. That was a $6 card. Or
things like, I can't remember, was it Kadama's Reach or Cultivate that got reprinted here?
Yep.
But those are continuously creeping up, and like if that doesn't show up here, it goes from being a $1.50 card to a $4 card at some point.
Well, I mean, Soul Ring's a $5 card. Lightning Greaves a $6 card.
Right, and they seem like every year they do either a Lightning Greaves or a Swiftfoot Boots, but if they didn't, how expensive would those be? If we didn't get those in Commander product every year, Greaves would be a $10 card, and Swifties would probably be a $5 card.
Yeah.
So like they are doing a good job of keeping those small things that maybe aren't like exciting. No one's like, sweet, Greaves again.
I am.
Well, I can think of a few people who are like that.
But like they need to reprint those, and this is the perfect place to do that. Because if they didn't, then everyone will be complaining, I can't believe Greaves is $15.
I think the thing I like most about these decks this year is they seem extremely playable as is.
Yes.
Yep.
Like you could sit down even with someone who's got a tier 7 deck, out of 10, and sit down and actually still have a chance to beat them.
Yeah.
I also like they put thought into the land base.
Yeah.
I mean, they did a lot of cool reprints for lands. Like they reprinted the Battle for Zendikar lands.
Bajuka Bog showed up.
Bajuka Bog showed up. Just getting those lands that feel like they were just printed in Standard, but Battle for Zendikar was really like 4 or 5 years ago now.
Well, and again, talking about stuff that was creeping up, Bajuka Bog was creeping up. Ash Barrens was creeping up again.
Yeah.
Reliquary Tower is always worth a couple bucks. So like, there's enough of those lands they put back in here that are going to keep them, even if they're not like $10 cards that you're going to get excited about, they're going to keep them from becoming an $8 or $10 card and keep the price under control.
I also find it interesting how many very recent cards are actually in these decks. Like Zapala, the Dino, that was a year and a half ago. Yeah. So
the Lockets,
and it was a mythic.
The Lockets were
recent.
This past year. So I mean, yeah, these sets have been designed for a few years, but I think they still at that last minute, it's like, hey, these Lockets are really cool. Let's throw it in here.
And these are also a pre-con. So these are, yes, Commander players like us buy them, but their main goal is to get new players decks that they can sit out and play with, or at least people to play, want to try an untuned deck. But like, I think you need to have a realistic expectations about what an intro product is going to have in it for cards too.
Right.
I'm not saying there couldn't be more reprints, because there absolutely could, and I certainly will not complain if there's a folded up $10 bill in every single pre-con. But I think realistically, I'm relatively happy with all of these, particularly because the decks I think are well made.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Garruk Wildspeaker, like we got Planeswalkers back, or Primal Hunter. Yes. That was something they had quit doing a couple of years back, and we got a Planeswalker in every single one of these stacks.
Yep.
Yeah.
So like again, they're not crazy value ones, but they're neat. They're fun Planeswalkers to play with that people maybe haven't seen or had a chance to use before, and I think they did well. They did a good job putting these together. I'm very happy with them.
Yeah, same here.
Temple of the False God, though. Get it out of your deck.
Ooh.
You still like it, don't you?
I do.
All right.
That's why we mulligan.
That's true. Very, very true. I think that's going to wrap it up for us, since we have to head down to the pool,
In a few days.
In a few days, right. When you hit this, maybe at this point in time we finish the show, maybe an hour later now we'll actually be up and heading down to the pool.
Maybe.
We'll see. All right. We'll be back tomorrow with the Decks You Played episode.
Correct.
Until then, I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.